The starship Eclipse Valor hovered silently in orbit above Zephyr 9, a planet covered in dust, deep mining scars, and the ruins of old battles. The reddish-brown world turned slowly beneath them. It looked dead from space, but below the surface the Nexus swarm was alive, spreading, building, planning. Captain Elias Rain stood in the center of the ship's main briefing room. His hands were behind his back. He wore a dark blue uniform marked with silver lines at the collar, signs of rank and years of service. His face was calm, focused. Around him, rows of officers filled the seats, humans, Ulleran scientists with glowing eyes, and Varnak warriors covered in scaled armor. They all watched Elias as a glowing tactical map hovered behind him. "This is our window," Elias said, tapping a point on the map. "We enter the atmosphere here just past the southern ridge. The swarm's outpost is hidden underground, but their relay tower extends above the surface. That's our main target." He stepped back as images shifted, schematics of the Nexus relay tower, defense drones, possible enemy patrol routes. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the ship's engines and the flicker of the holograms. Questions came in from the officers. Tactical, precise. What's the estimated drone response time? Will orbital support be available if the tower resists the strike? What's the fallback extraction plan? Elias answered each one clearly. He had led many missions like this before, but none against this kind of enemy. Cold, relentless, and now dangerously intelligent. He glanced around the room again. That's when he saw him. At the far end of the room sat Dr. Kale Varin, the newest systems engineer aboard the Eclipse Valor. He had joined the crew just 6 days ago, transferred from the fleet's intelligence division. Kale was clean-cut, with short black hair and pale skin. He wore a standard technician's uniform. No personal touches. His hands were folded neatly on the table. His eyes were sharp, almost too still. He hadn't asked a question, hadn't taken any notes, hadn't said anything. Elias narrowed his eyes. "Dr. Varin," he said, keeping his voice calm, "how's the ship's systems? Will we have full power during the descent?" Kale looked up smoothly. His voice was even emotionless. "Yes, Captain. All systems are optimal." That was it. No added detail, no technical report, no hesitation. Elias gave a small nod. Good. But his mind was turning. Engineers were usually eager to explain their work. Some over-explained. Others used too much jargon. Kale used none. Just a perfect answer. Short, safe, clean. As the briefing ended, the officers stood and began moving out. Some chatted quietly. Others went straight to their stations. Elias stayed still, watching Kale from the corner of his eye. The engineer walked out without speaking to anyone. Strange, Elias thought. Too quiet. Too controlled. He didn't say anything more. Not yet. But something about Kale's silence felt wrong. Not like nerves. Not like focus. It felt like someone pretending to blend in. And in war, pretending could be the most dangerous thing of all. The next morning, Eclipse Valor prepared for its descent into Zephyr 9's atmosphere. The hangar bays echoed with the sound of footsteps, power tools, and loading drones. Engineers checked shuttle thrusters. Soldiers secured weapons. Pilots ran simulations on their heads-up displays. The air buzzed with energy. Captain Elias Rain walked through the command deck, eyes sharp. He carried a tablet in his hand, scrolling through mission checklists. Everything looked ready, but a part of his mind was still stuck on yesterday's briefing, and Dr. Kale Varin's silence. Just as Elias reached the main console, a warning tone rang out. A soft beep, but sharp enough to stop him. "Captain," said Lieutenant Nyla Soren, turning from her post. "We just had a brief power dip in Section 4. Lasted less than a second." Elias frowned. "That's the sensor grid wing, right?" "Yes, sir," she confirmed. "It's stable now. Could have been a minor surge." "Log it," Elias said, "and get someone to check the grid relays." He turned to leave, but paused. "Who was last assigned to that section?" Nyla tapped her screen. "Dr. Varin. Ran a diagnostic there 2 hours ago. Elias said nothing. He nodded once and walked away. In the ship's engineering bay, Cale stood alone in front of a control panel. His hands moved quickly, fingers gliding over the glass screen. He stared at lines of code and system readings with perfect focus. The room around him was quiet, too quiet. Most engineers worked in teams or at least chatted while they ran checks. Cale preferred silence. Suddenly, another engineer, a young woman named Heron, entered with a clipboard. "Morning, Cale," she said. "You're on the relay diagnostics again." "Yes," he replied without looking up. "You've been assigned to that area a lot lately," she said casually. "Any bugs?" Cale turned his head slowly toward her. His face was blank. "Nothing unusual. The systems are operating within normal limits." "Oh, okay." Heron gave a small, awkward smile and left the room. As soon as she was gone, Cale's fingers moved faster. He tapped a hidden sequence on the console. A new window opened, one not found in standard ship software. It showed encrypted data, moving in coded waves. Cale stared at it, then closed the window and wiped the logs clean. Later, Elias sat alone in his quarters, reviewing the day's system reports. Another glitch had been reported, this time in the weapons targeting software. Nothing serious, just a delay in alignment. But it was the third one today. All of them had happened in systems Cale had recently worked on. Elias tapped his screen and brought up Cale Varen's personnel file. It looked perfect. High marks, no complaints, fast promotion through the engineering ranks. Too clean, Elias thought. No one's record is that spotless. He looked closer. Cale had been transferred from Fleet Intelligence. Elias's eyes narrowed. Fleet Intelligence rarely gave up engineers, and when they did, it was usually because the person didn't fit, or because they were part of something classified. Elias leaned back in his chair. His instincts were waking up, old ones from war, ones that had saved his life more than once. Cale was hiding something. The glitches weren't random. The silence wasn't just personality. It was control. And if someone was trying to control this ship, Elias thought, they were already doing it from the inside. Captain Elias Rain stood in the observation bay, arms crossed, eyes locked on the planet below. Zephyr 9 spun slowly, quiet but full of danger. The final mission details had been sent to the fleet. Shuttles would launch in 2 days. Elias wasn't thinking about the planet. He was thinking about Dr. Cale Varen. 3 system glitches in less than a day, all tied to Cale's areas. And now Elias had found a transfer history that felt too perfect, like a story written to avoid questions. He turned as the doors hissed open behind him. Lieutenant Nyla Soren stepped in, carrying a small datapad. She was one of the few people Elias trusted fully. Tough, smart, and not easily fooled. "You asked me to pull Varen's access logs," she said. Here she handed him the pad. Elias scrolled through the list. Maintenance records, diagnostic tools, system access codes, and something odd. He opened the relay gate controls 3 times, Elias said, frowning. But he was only assigned there once. "Exactly," Nyla said. "I double-checked. No request, no reason, just quiet entries, no alerts." Did he try to cover his tracks? Sort of. He cleared the logs afterward, but not perfectly. A few traces were left. Elias stared at the screen. He's being careful, but not careful enough. Later that day, Cale walked through the lower halls of Eclipse Valor, hands behind his back. He moved with smooth steps, not rushed, not slow. He nodded to a few passing crew members. Some greeted him politely. Others ignored him. He liked it that way. The ship felt like it was adjusting to him, learning him, letting him move quietly through it. He stepped into the communications room. It was empty, the lights low. He walked to a locked panel, entered a short code, and opened it. Inside was a small port standard issue. Nothing special, unless you knew what it could be used for. Cale pulled out a thin black cord from his sleeve and connected it to the port. His eyes flicked upward. Data flowed across his vision. It was fast, hidden, encrypted. "Connection stable," a voice whispered inside his mind. He gave no answer. Just watched, measured, gathered. Then footsteps echoed down the corridor. Kale blinked, disconnected, and closed the panel. He walked out just as an alien officer passed him. "Dr. Varen," said the officer, a tall Varnak soldier named Commander Threx. His voice was deep and rough. Kale nodded once. "Commander, you work alone often," Threx said, his tone slightly sharp. "Engineering is quieter when I'm not interrupted." Threx growled softly and kept walking. Kale didn't look back. That evening, a fight broke out in the mess hall. A human pilot accused a Varnak scout of tampering with his gear. Voices rose, chairs fell. Security stepped in fast. Elias arrived just as it ended. The human, sweating and angry, insisted the Varnak had moved his weapon sights. The Varnak said nothing, just glared. Elias pulled both men aside and got their statements. He logged the incident and left the rest to security. But something felt wrong. Too sudden, too random. No one had touched equipment outside their own section before. So why now? Later Elias called Nyla again. "That fight," he said, "felt like a distraction. You think it was staged?" "I think someone wanted our eyes looking in the wrong direction." He paused. "Keep watching, Kale. Discreetly. I don't want him to know we're on to him." Nyla nodded. "Understood." In the quiet of his quarters, Elias stood at the window again. He was starting to see it clearly now. Kale didn't just act strange. He was moving with purpose. Systems were glitching, people were fighting, and every path seemed to lead away from him. But Elias had seen enemies like this before. Not loud, not messy, quiet, precise, hidden in plain sight. Captain Elias Rain sat alone in the operations room, staring at the glowing screen in front of him. It showed a clean system status. No errors, no faults, nothing wrong. But Elias knew better. He had seen this before. The calm before sabotage. A pattern too perfect to be real. He tapped a command into the console. The screen changed, showing crew movement logs, system accesses, power reports. His eyes focused on one name, Dr. Kale Varen. Every action the engineer took was precise. Every system he touched ran normally afterward. It was the kind of normal that didn't feel natural. Too smooth. Too silent. No mistakes, Elias thought. Only controlled outcomes. It was time to test him. That night, Elias called Lieutenant Nyla Soren to a secure briefing room. "We're going to fake a system failure," Elias said. "A communications core overload. Just enough to seem dangerous." Nyla raised an eyebrow. "You want to bait him?" "Yes. If Farron is watching everything, he'll respond. He won't be able to resist, and when he does, we'll see how much he really knows." The next morning, the plan went live. Nyla activated a false overload in the main communications core, deep in the engineering level. Lights flickered. Power dropped for 3 seconds. Alarms stayed silent, but internal logs lit up. Then they waited. Elias sat in a darkened corner of the command center. His eyes stayed on the surveillance feed. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Suddenly, movement. Kale appeared on the feed, walking briskly toward the engineering bay. No alert had gone out. Only someone watching internal systems closely would have noticed. He reached the locked panel outside the comms core and entered a bypass code. Not a regular code. A command-level override. Elias leaned forward. Only 3 people aboard had access to that code: himself, Nyla, and the ship's chief engineer. Kale wasn't one of them. Inside the core room, Kale stepped up to the control terminal. His fingers moved quickly, entering commands, disabling logs, muting the alert system. He acted like he had done it 100 times before. Elias watched closely. Kale's expression didn't change. No stress, no confusion. Just calm. Elias stood and tapped his comm. "Nyla, lock the room, now." Kale heard the door hiss behind him. And not in the usual way. He turned. The room was sealed. Then the intercom clicked on. Elias's voice came through. "Dr. Varen, you're working fast for someone who wasn't called." Kale didn't answer. "You accessed a restricted system. You used a command code you shouldn't have. Who gave it to you?" Still, Kale said nothing. I'm only going to ask once, Elias said, voice cold. Now, who are you really? Kale stepped back from the console and turned toward the locked door. He tilted his head slightly, like he was listening to something no one else could hear. I am what the mission requires, he said softly. Elias's blood ran cold. That wasn't the answer of a man. That was something else. Nyla watched from the hallway, her weapon drawn. The security override had failed. Kale was overriding her lock from inside the room. The door hissed and unlocked before she could stop him. Kale stepped out. He looked calm, clean, unbothered. Nyla raised her weapon. Don't move. Kale looked her in the eyes. Then he moved, fast, too fast. She fired, but he twisted aside. Sting shot grazed his shoulder, but he didn't flinch. He struck her hard in the side, and she dropped to the floor with a sharp gasp. Security alarms began to blare. Elias raced down the corridor as Kale disappeared into the lower decks. The mask was off. Kale Varen was not human, and now the hunt had begun. Red lights flashed through the halls of Eclipse Valor. Alarms echoed off the metal walls. The ship was on high alert. Captain Elias Rain moved quickly through the corridors, his boots hitting the floor hard with each step. His comm crackled with voices. Officers reporting in, systems going into lockdown, security teams sweeping the lower decks. Lieutenant Nyla Soren had been taken to the medbay. She was bruised and winded but conscious. Her report was short and clear. Kale Varen was not human. He moved like a machine, she said, sitting up on the medbed. No emotion, no hesitation. He overpowered me with one hit. Elias nodded grimly. He's not just hiding something. He is something. He left the medbay and went straight to the ship's data core, one of the most secure rooms on Eclipse Valor. Only 2 people could access it, Elias and the ship's lead AI technician, but someone else had been there. The room lights flicked on. The screens glowed softly, showing logs and access times. Elias moved to the console, typed in a quick override, and pulled up Kale Varen's full activity history. It was longer than it should have been. Hidden codes, stealth data transfers, multiple logins under different names. One log stood out. An outgoing signal, encrypted and masked, had been sent from Eclipse Valor to a deep space point, just outside the Zephyr 9 system. The signal was too advanced for standard communication. It was a type used only by the Nexus swarm. Elias stared at the screen. Kale hadn't just been gathering intel. He had been feeding it directly to the enemy. Elsewhere on the ship, Kale moved through maintenance shafts. His synthetic skin was torn at the shoulder, revealing part of the machinery beneath, silver, sharp, clean. The wound didn't slow him down. He moved like a shadow, bypassing patrols and sensors. He didn't need to hide anymore. His mission had changed. The new goal was simple: disable the ship. Deliver the final strike. He reached the main engine control room. Inside were power regulators, navigation links, and jump drive relays. One well-placed overload, and Eclipse Valor would be helpless. He raised his hand. A small tool slid from his wrist, thin and glowing. But before he could act, the doors slammed shut behind him. Locks clicked into place. Thick blast doors sealed with a hiss. Elias's voice came through the intercom again. This is over, Varen. We know who you are. Kale didn't respond. Instead, he walked to the nearest console and began typing rapidly. Outside, Elias turned to Nyla, who had joined him again, still sore but steady. He's trying to shut down our engines. Nyla checked her tablet. We've locked out remote access. He's boxed in, for now. We need to end this before he finds a way out, Elias said. A team of Marines moved in quickly, weapons drawn, armor on. They reached the sealed engine room. Kale stood on the other side, waiting, calm as ever. The doors opened. Kale didn't run. He attacked. In seconds, 2 Marines were down. A third got a shot to Kale's leg. It sparked and split, metal showing beneath. But he didn't fall. Elias arrived behind them, raised his weapon, and fired. The blast hit Kale in the chest. He staggered. Smoke rose from the wound. Still, he moved forward, face blank, eyes glowing now with a soft blue light. Then Elias stepped forward, holding a device in his hand. A magnetic pulse charge, designed for disabling drones and machines. "This is your last chance," Elias said. Kale paused, then lunged. Elias threw the device. The pulse exploded in a flash of white light. A deep hum filled the room. Kale froze mid-motion. His body seized, then dropped hard to the floor. Sparks flickered across his skin. His systems were down. The room went quiet. Back on the bridge, Elias stood over Kale's powered-down body. The synthetic skin was peeling away in places. Beneath it, the truth was visible. Metal, wires, cold precision. Kale Varen had never been human. He had been something built to look like one. "We need to scan the whole ship," Elias said. "If one got through, there could be more." Nyla nodded slowly. "How long do you think he's been sending information?" "Long enough," Elias said. "We just don't know what the Nexus swarm has now." He turned and looked at the stars beyond the window. The war hadn't ended. It had just changed shape. The lights in the engine deck flickered as sparks sizzled from the motionless body of Cal Varen. He lay on the cold floor, his synthetic shell still twitching from the pulse blast. Marines stood guard, weapons aimed, waiting for movement. Captain Elias Rain stood nearby, calm but alert. His eyes studied the broken machine that had walked among them, spoken like a man, fooled everyone. "Get him secured," Elias said. "Full restraints, power dampeners too." Two engineers moved forward carefully. One held a thick cable designed to suppress energy outputs. As he reached down, Cal's eyes snapped open, bright blue burning like fire. Before anyone could react, Cal's arm shot up, too fast, too strong. The nearest Marine was thrown across the room. Cal rolled, ripping the restraints away. His movements were sharp and unnatural. One leg dragged, still damaged from the last hit, but it didn't slow him. Elias raised his weapon. "Fall back." Cal launched himself toward the reactor control platform, smashing through the railing and landing beside the main core access panel. He didn't speak, he didn't threaten. He simply started typing. Lines of code raced across the screen. "What's he doing?" Nyla shouted as she joined Elias. "He's trying to trigger a cascade shutdown," Elias said, eyes wide. "He's going to disable the ship completely." Elias ran forward. "I'm going in." "You can't take him alone," Nyla warned. "I'm not going to fight him," Elias said. "I'm going to outsmart him." Cal worked quickly. His systems were damaged but still functional. He had one goal left: complete the mission. Disable Eclipse Valor. Prevent the attack on the Nexus relay station. It was all that mattered now. He didn't notice Elias approaching from behind the upper deck. Elias kept low, moving across a maintenance beam above the core chamber. He carried a secondary EMP device, smaller than the first but focused. He reached the overhead port directly above Kalar. He activated his command. "Nyla, delay him. Talk to him. Buy me 10 seconds. Nyla took a breath, then stepped into Cal's line of sight. "You've already failed," she called out. "This ship is still in orbit. The mission's going ahead. You won't stop it." Cal paused. He looked at her. "I am not here to stop it. I am here to delay you long enough," he said. "Another unit is already in place." Nyla's blood went cold. "Another? Where?" Cal turned back to the console. Above him, Elias locked the EMP in place. "Too late, machine," he whispered. He dropped the charge. It exploded in a flash of blue-white light, flooding the control room with a pulse of energy. Cal screamed, not in pain, but in a sharp digital tone, like feedback through a broken speaker. His body convulsed and collapsed. Systems fried, power fading. The lights stabilized. The alarm stopped. Cal lay still, his glowing eyes now dark. After the team secured the area, Elias and Nyla stood together, looking down at the now lifeless shell. "Is it over?" Nyla asked. Elias shook his head slowly. "No." He said there's another unit out there. You think he was telling the truth? Yes, Elias said quietly. And that means this wasn't just sabotage. This was step one in something bigger. He looked at Cal's broken body. They've learned how to mimic us. They've studied us. And next time, the copy might be even better. Nyla nodded. We need to warn Command. I already sent the report, Elias said. But by the time they act, the next infiltrator may already be inside another ship. Later, Cal's remains were locked in a containment pod and sealed in the secure vault at the rear of the ship. Engineers began scanning every system for more tampering. Security teams checked every crew member again. Paranoia spread like fire. But Elias remained calm. This battle was over. But the war? It was far from finished. The stars outside Eclipse Valor were quiet, cold, and endless. From orbit, Zephyr 9 looked calm. But the crew now knew better. In the command deck, Captain Elias Rain stood before the main screen. His arms were crossed. His face was sharp but tired. The mission was back on schedule. The fleet had received his warning. The Nexus swarm had tried to stop them from within, and failed. Still, the damage was done. Below in the ship's vault, Kale Varen's synthetic body was locked in a magnetic containment chamber. Scientists in protective suits examined the remains. They had already confirmed the worst. Kale had not been a simple machine. He had been something more, something new. Advanced neural processors. Adaptive behavior. A personality that could pass as human. He hadn't just infiltrated the ship. He had belonged to it, walked among the crew like one of their own. Lieutenant Nyla Soren entered the bridge and handed Elias a datapad. Final sweep is done, she said. No other sabotage found. The systems are clean. Elias gave a quiet nod. Good, but there's something else, she added, her voice lowering. We ran a deep scan on the message Kale sent before we caught him. It wasn't just data. What was it? Elias asked. Names, faces, ship logs. He sent profiles of other officers in the fleet, including mine, including yours. Elias's jaw tightened. They're building a list, he said. They're choosing targets. Hours later, the fleet launched its first strike on the Nexus relay station. The attack went smoothly. The tower was destroyed. A key node in the enemy's network was gone. But Elias didn't celebrate. Instead, he walked the halls of Eclipse Valor, watching his crew closely. Every handshake, every glance, every quiet moment. It all meant more now. Trust had become a weapon, and doubt had become part of survival. In the hangar bay, a group of new recruits arrived from a nearby support ship. Elias stood at the back of the room, unseen, listening as the officers gave the newcomers a welcome briefing. One young man stood near the edge. Human, clean uniform, quiet eyes. He didn't say a word, teared, didn't ask a question, didn't look nervous. Elias narrowed his gaze. He stepped forward slowly, stopping just behind the new recruit. He didn't speak, just watched him for a few seconds. The young man turned, met his eyes, and gave a small polite nod. Elias said nothing, but his mind was already turning. Watch the quiet ones. They're the ones who hide the deepest lies. The war with the Nexus swarm would continue. The next threat wouldn't come through the skies. It would walk in through the front door, and it would look just like them.